Today we're going to be making this 100 single-sleeved card deck box out of a package, well, 2 empty packages of chocolate Cheerios cereal. Stick around and see how it's done. Today we're going to be making a deck box with this empty box of chocolate Cheerios packaging, using this stencil that I created with some, so that you can create your own stencil with our downloads here. Every stencil that we have, there's 20 of them to make 22 different stencils, but they're all labeled here. This one's for 100 single sleeved cards. You could do 100 non-sleeved cards. You could also make a box for 100 double-sleeved cards, whatever you like. Anyway, let's get started. In order to make this deck box, you're going to need some supplies. One of the things that you're going to need is a cutting board of some kind. This is just a scrap piece of wood that I had laying around. You don't want to mark up your countertop or your table or anything like that. So get yourself a cutting board of some kind. You may or may not need it today, but sometimes you need a ruler depending on how complex your box build is going to be. So it's always good to have one on hand. You're also going to need some glue. Now, just get the cheapest glue you can find. I use carpenter's glue because I had it on hand. It works great. You can get it at just about any hardware store. You're also going to need a knife, a utility knife of some kind. The sharper the better, and also why you'd want to have a cutting board as well. You're going to need a pair of scissors. Those are going to really help you out. A pen is going to be very important because you have to trace around this stencil. You're also going to need a wire brush. You can also use a scrubber, a wire scrubber, like for your dishes, a metal one if you have it. That works just as well. It actually works better than this. Either way, either one will work, but you're going to need something like that. You got to scrub the waxy surface off of this paper board. Then you're going to need a round electrical cover plate. This is like $1.50 at any hardware store. They're really cheap. It's got a dull flat surface. Well, this is rounded, but it's flat going this way. It's not a sharp edge like a pizza cutter. Pizza cutter's bad. You don't want that. You want a dull edge so that you can crease the paper board, just like these factory folds that you see in it when they manufactured this box, so that you can roll across it and you can make a nice little crease in it, okay? You're also going to need some clamps for when it's time to glue it together. It's not mandatory, but if you've got them, it just makes it easier. Otherwise, you're going to be holding it with your hands, and you'll see this near the end of the process. Finally, I've got some pieces of wood here. This is just scrap plywood that I had. I cut to size to fit inside of the boxes to go with these clamps. Not expected, not necessary. They're totally optional, but they're great to have. So let's get started, okay? All right. There's 2 different ways that you can make a deck box, and you can see them in all of the instruction videos that I have on YouTube for this. You can make a deck box out of one solid piece of paperboard, which I can get really right here. I would trace the entire thing out as one piece, fold it, glue it together. It's done, one piece, one flap. A flap refers to this piece right here. This you're going to see in a while. It folds over. It glues to the back side of here. That's what holds your box together, okay? So that's one piece, one flap. If you want to watch those videos, that's the name on the YouTube channel. Today, we're going to need to do many pieces and many flaps. So the videos, I believe, are called Many Pieces in the YouTube videos. And the reason is part of making a deck box is you want it to look cool. You want it to look nice. So if I've got, like, for instance, for me, I don't want to see this in the deck box. I don't want to see this writing down here in the deck box. I want to have the cool logo here. And maybe if I could get the Cheerios themselves in there, if the design worked, great. But so for the sake of today's deck box, I'm just going to get this logo in here. Now there's a factory fold right here, as you can see. I don't want to have that in the middle of my box. Like this here is the front of your box. This is the bottom of it. I don't want to see this factory fold running right down the middle. So if I'm going to use this side of it, I'm going to put where one of my folds needs to be when I bend the box around. I'm going to use it that way, or I'm not going to use it at all. Or you don't see these flaps at all, and nobody really, at least I don't, never looks at the bottom of the box. If I had a factory fold going across the bottom here or here, just because I needed to make this look nicer, that's fine. Otherwise, I don't use these factory folds at all. I stay away from them, okay? And as you can see, I have a factory fold on this side here too. So if I'm going to use it here or on this side, I could use it for this flap. Then I don't have to crease it, or I can start here, whatever I like. So for today, because this paperboard isn't wide enough to get the whole thing in on one piece, we're going to have to make it out of two pieces, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing I have to do is I got to figure out where I'm going to position this on here to make to trace it out. And by looking at things, knowing that I'm only going to get, this is the left side of the deck box, this is the front and the bottom, this is the right side of the deck box, this is your back, and then the top of your deck box. So when it's closing, this is the lid that you see right here. So, and they're all labeled like that. Here's your back, here's your front and bottom and your top. So in case you get a little disoriented or you forget it, you've got these labels here that tells you where everything is, so you can factor that in when deciding how you want to design it. Because you can make a deck box out of literally 10, 11, 12 pieces if you really want to. All that you need is glue flaps to glue them together, because if you got two pieces, how do you glue them together, right? And that's the magic of these flaps. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So what we're going to do is when I put my stencil here, I can see that the top of the stencil goes about here, the bottom goes down here. So I can easily get this in my box design. So what I'm going to try and do is make sure that I don't want to see this part of this bowl from here up at all. I don't care about here or here or here. I don't want to see it up. I just want to have this design here in this part of the stencil, okay? Ideally, I wouldn't even have any of this in this flap, because when you look inside your box, you're going to see it. But there's nothing I can do about it. I'm kind of forced to. So the first thing that I do is I set it up, and I'm going to estimate where center is. Now this mark right here, that's center. That's halfway from here to here. So if you really wanted to get serious, you could take your ruler, you could it's easier with this part with inches, you could figure out how far it is from here to here, cut that in half, add it on from here down to here plus the half. You could come over like this, wherever that number is, and then that'll get you exactly in half. That's where rulers can come in handy. I'm not going to be that fussy today, but you can take it to whatever level you want. So I'm just going to line it up like this. I'm going to use this factory fold for this glue flap right here. I'm just eyeballing. This is why when you make these stencils, you want to cut out the middles so you can see inside to see where everything is underneath. You don't have to do it, but that's why I made that option when you download your stencils. Okay, so once I figured out where I've got this, oh, and on top of that, you want to figure out, okay, so you've got these three figured out. You can cut out this flap, these bottom flaps, this whole bottom can be cut out, but this part and this part isn't cut out yet, right? So up here in Canada, we got French on the other side, and très bien, it's great, it's fine, but I don't want to have a mixture of anglais au français on my deck box. It's not what I want to do with this design. Nothing wrong with it. I just want to keep it all looking the same. So when you have that option, or when you're having that difficulty and you can't, and there's no other way that looking at your cereal box design or pop, beer, whatever you're using, if nothing else works for you, maybe you don't want to see these Cheerios on the back and the top of your box design, whatever, then grab a second one. And so because I only need to do this section here, I checked it all out and I can get everything in. So from this line, I'll have that covered and you can't see any of this text past it. So theoretically, I should be able to make this work. So this is going to be the second piece that I cut out, okay? So for now, we're going to trace out these three here, 1, 2, and 3, and then we can we'll cut it out, and then we can do what I just showed you next. So I'm going to try and eyeball this to get all of this text in the middle of here and here, and it's looking pretty close. Next, I'm going to eyeball this line right here for my glue flap right on this factory fold right here. Well, it looks pretty good. So now it's just a matter of tracing. And I'm going to use blue because why not? The most important part of this process, besides getting ink all the way around, is not letting this move. Once you start tracing, you don't want it to move anywhere at all. Then you run the risk of not having your box form correctly when you cut it out and glue it together. So all I'm going to do is start tracing it out. By the way, these little nubs are very important, and when it comes to dealing with them in a little bit, I'll explain why. Make sure you get those in. There's a bunch of them. There's one here, one down here, and one over there. So make sure that they're in your design and clearly marked out with your pen. Then it literally is just a matter of going around and tracing it out. You're going to make this stencil once, and if you're gentle with it, you could potentially make 20, 30, or 40 boxes with one of these stencils. The only way it's going to wear out is from, it's paperboard, right? It's just made with paperboard. This is from an old beer case. So by running the pen along it, you're going to wear it down. So if you want to prolong that life, you can put a little bit of this carpenter's glue. You can water it down and you can run it along the edge and try not to have any clumps or anything like that. But that can extend the life of the stencil. Or when it's getting too bad, you just make another one. It only takes about a half an hour to make one of these stencils. So we're going to get all the way around to here. And now we got to figure out, okay, how do we join this piece and this piece together? Because I'm not tracing this out right now. And that's a great question. So let me first start off, because I forgot to do this. I'm going to trace out this part here. Got this little nub, and then right here. Now, I haven't done this part yet because there's two different ways you could do the front. You can have this half circle. You're going to stick your thumb in there to pull open the lid on your finished deck box. So you can do a half circle. I can go around and trace it like this, and then I just cut it out. Or I can do a V shape, and a V shape comes down and it goes straight up. Today we're going to do a V shape. So I'm just going to draw a line right where the center mark is, like that. And then we'll finish that in a second here. So now my stencil is to there, and I've got this nub here also finished. Okay. What we want to do next is these little triangles. As you can see, this is the glue flap here. These triangles help you to make a glue flap. Anywhere you see them, you can make a glue flap for here. You can make a glue flap over. Anywhere there's triangles, you can make a glue flap. And the glue flap allows you to join two separate pieces. So I have to figure out, excuse me, how I want to do this. Do I want to add a glue flap over here and have it attached to this piece? Or when I trace this one out, do I add a glue flap here so that it's attached here and it'll glue onto this piece? It doesn't matter how you do it. Either way works fine. You just pick one. Because there's a factory fold right in the middle of my glue flap, it'll work fine if you do use it, but I'm just not going to because I don't have to use it. I'll put the glue flap on this piece here, okay? So when we're cutting this out, I have to know where to cut here. And because this is just going to be cut right up this line, what I'm going to do is I just make a little mark up there, and because my nub's got a mark down there, I can draw that in with a ruler. So let's take care of that now, and then we can do the rest in a minute. So as you can see, our two lines are right here and here. So I'll move my pen up to there. We're good there, and I just draw a line down like that. Okay, great. Now over here we have the V cut for the where your thumb opens the box lid. Just like that, okay? Now we're ready to cut it out. You get your scissors and go to work. I won't bore you with the details of watching me cut this out, but you just pick a spot and get started. All right, I got this almost all cut out. I got a bunch of extra pieces here. I wanted to show you how you could use your knife to finish this. As you can see, I got a piece flopping here. It's kind of hard to get in there with your scissors. So that's where this knife comes in. You can just cut it right on the line like this, and then that piece is done. Now, you also have little pieces down here that you got to do. You can use your scissors to cut them out, or you can just use your utility knife, whatever you like. There's also a couple of nibs right here on the bottom. You probably can't see it in the video, but right here in the bottom you have two little nubs, and their purpose will be explained in a little while. So we cut those out, and then we got to get over here to the other side, and we have to cut out these pieces here. They are this piece right here and this piece right here, this is gonna get folded over, so they just, you'll see. It'll come together here fairly quickly once we get going. So we can cut that piece out. And then over here, let me make sure I'm not seeing the line very well. We're going to cut that off there. That cuts off there. So that's all a knife is for. It's pretty straightforward. Just cutting off these little pieces. I've only got 2 little nubs left to do. There's one right here. And then there's one right here. There, if I had the 4th piece on here, there's one on the end here, which I talked about earlier, but it doesn't matter right now. So there's your first piece with your 1 glue flap already folded over for you. We'll put that off to the side. Then we'll get our next one out. So now we're only doing this piece here with one of these glue flaps. Whoops, careful. I gotta decide, do I want, when the deck box is open, or when I'm looking at the lid, do I want this part on here, or do I want to have this part up here, right? It doesn't matter what you do, you just got to make a choice. So I think, and do I want this part of this C going on the flap that goes down inside the box or not? I think it kind of looks cool if you do. So I'm just going to guesstimate, and this is going to be very tight. It's going to take up the entire width of this section with all of the text above and below the name. So I'm going to go right here. I'm happy with this. So we'll start out by tracing the entire thing, obviously. Just like so. And I'll show you how to do this part in 1 second. The first thing that I'm going to do is draw out these parts right here. Now we're going to, putting this little nub right here, that lets me know where this part of the box is going to be. So now we're down to here and we're up to here. Now we need to add in this glue flap. So with these triangles, this is all I'm doing, that's all I need them for, is just to make those 2 little lines. And then it's finished. Okay, I don't need this really anymore. At least not today. Sometimes you might, but today we don't. So now I've got these lines here. I can join them up. And then we know that this is where we stopped on the bottom of the lid. And we know that this is where we stopped on the backs, on the bottom side as well. Now we have this one piece with this glue flap that we've added in is ready to go. You're going to need 1 glue flap for every additional piece you have. If I did this in 4 pieces, I would have 4 glue flaps. Okay, so 1 glue flap for each piece. You always have to factor in a glue flap when you do a deck box with more than 1 piece. All right, so now we can cut this out, and then we can start putting it together. I'll spare you the boredom of watching this. Now that we've got this all cut out, I can get my knife and I can finish cutting out the top pieces. That gets that one out. This one's already done. I got a bit of goop there. And then I got 1 little nub to add in right here. And then this is ready to go. these are the two pieces we're going to use to make our deck box. The next part of the process is we've got to create all of these lines so that I know where to fold the box over. Okay, we got to fold them all over, and that's where these little nubs that I've created come in very handy. So using your ruler, if you can see there's angled here, then it's straight. The straight part is what matters. So I put my pen right on the edge of it, and then I go right down to the very edge of this bottom part, just like that. That should be the same distance from here to here to there to there, okay? Then I'll just repeat the same process. The nub comes down at an angle here and goes straight up. So I'm just going to put my pen right on there, go right down like so, and that's done, okay? This one's already been done, so I don't need to draw it in. Now we're going to go across. Right at, I don't know if you can barely see it, but I've got a little corner. I built in that corner on purpose so you know where the top is, okay? And the same thing over here. This has been built in so you know where the top is. So I can just line them both up like that. And if you've done it right, it should work right across the top there. We flip it over, and you can see there's a little corner down here. We're going to use that, and we're going to use this corner here as well. And we've got the whole top done. It's coming together nice. Then over here, this is your bottom flap. You've got it comes in here and here. I did that just so that you can make this line. You'd know where to make it. And there you have it. Now, it's important to get these lines right because the distance from here to here is the same distance as from here to here. Because when this part is folded over, this part comes up. So this part here, this corner here is touching this corner here when it's all folded into place. And you want to make sure that they're the same distance apart, otherwise they don't close as nicely and you notice it. So if you really want to, if you'll notice on these stencils, I put in the measurements in millimeters and inches. And in this instance, it's better to use millimeters because they're more accurate than inches are. So you could take your ruler and you could measure across here, and it will be 2 7/16 inches, or in this case 62 millimeters. Okay, same thing. The arrows show you which way the measurements go across, and it also has a vertical measurement right there that goes from the bottom up to this line right here, 94 millimeters. They're all 94 millimeters. So it's 94 millimeters across. And like I said, 62 millimeters across here. This one will be 62 millimeters here. Same with the top. This does not get counted in your measurements. Ignore that. And your flaps are just what they are. It doesn't matter if you cut them a bit shorter this way, made them bigger. They're just flaps, okay? And if you've got a say you wanted a sideboard in your 100 single sleeve deck box, right? Well, one of the stencils that you'll get in the package is 110 single sleeved deck box stencil, or double sleeved or non-sleeved. And the 110 allows you to have 10 card sideboard. There's even a 120 card option as well. Maybe you want to have a bigger deck, or you want 20 side cards, whatever it goes down in 20s. There's 80, then 60 and 40 as well. So there's plenty of options for you to choose from, whether you got single sleeve, double sleeved, or non-sleeved, okay? And the point of saying all that, I got a little carried away, is these numbers change based on the amount of cards that you want to hold in the deck. And the double sleeved decks are actually a different size altogether, because the double sleeve does not fit in the way the normal arrangement works. So there will be a DS at the end of this name. It'll say 100 or double sleeved card. Sorry, it'll say at the end on this here, and they fit excuse me, in a bigger deck case than the single sleeved and non-sleeved cards. So just remember that when you're making everything out for yourself. All right. This one's finished and ready to go. Now we need to figure out how to draw the lines on this one. Let's start with the easy one, because we've got this line here and this line here. This is easy to figure out. We just run the line across there. I try not to make the lines too dark, because then I'm less likely to see them in the finished box, which matters to me. Now, in this design, I have the glue flap coming right to the bottom. Your glue flap comes right to the bottom of your lid. So this corner here, that's where I start to draw my line across to this nub right there, okay? So we're going to flip that over, and I'm going to use this as my starting point. And I'm going to go right to the center of the nub, just like that, okay? The whole point when you're cutting these multiple pieces out is to know where your starting point is. And if you ever can't figure out how to do it, that's what these lines here are for, is to show you where your lines are that you've got to. They're thicker than the other ones, and they're a lighter gray, so they're designed to show you where you need to crease your box. And then I've added lines across the middle of every section, so that if you wanted to use it as a reference to figure out where center would be, you can use those lines. But the fatter ones are for creasing. Okay, so all that's left now is to crease out this glue flap so that we can make one of these guys. And if you'll notice in this corner, we've made this little guy. This was a nub, so it comes up to there. So that's our starting point, and we're going to use the edge of our lid as well. So I just line that up. Boom, now we've got our flap. Okay. How am I doing this wrong? Something, it's like this. Here we go. It goes like that. Okay. So this will glue onto here. This will come around and glue onto here, and you got your box. So next thing we need to do is we need to start creasing. To do that, we're going to use our cover plate here. And we're going to use this because, as you can see, when you don't use it, you're going to dent your countertop or your table or whatever. You're going to upset the wife or your mom or whoever's you're using, or maybe it's your own and you don't care like I don't care. So for the sake of this explanation, we're going to use the cutting board. Now, you can do it without any cardboard on your hand. You just line it up and you push down as hard as you can. And you just go across it and make a line. It'll dent in your hand pretty hard, and I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me so much. But because the harder you push down on here, the better the crease is. If you don't crease it with one of these, then the crease doesn't look as good when you fold it. Let me get one of these guys here. You maybe can see it better. As you can see there, the fold doesn't look as nice. You get some parts that are a little bit fatter than others, and it just doesn't look nice all finished. Try it yourself. Cut up a piece and try it. You'll see what I mean. What I recommend if it hurts your hand using this, because you literally have to push as hard as you can to do this, then just get that little piece of scrap on there like that. Line it up and go across. That's all there is to it. Once again, I can't emphasize enough, the harder you push down, the better your crease will be. And if you really want to try and get a sharp one, there is a sharp edge on each side of this cover plate. If you put the cover plate at a slight angle, it will give a sharper crease. You just have to really pay attention and make sure that you stay on the line the whole way down. If you go straight up and down, it works great too. Yeah, the choice is yours. Okay, so for this one, we're gonna put it at a slight angle. Now for these videos, I'm reaching out past my knees to make this crease, because where the camera is right now is the only place I can put it. If I was doing this without recording the video, I would actually stand up and stand over top of where I'm creasing. That way I could push down even harder and get a better crease. So for this video, you got to put up with my arm shaking here. I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and then we'll carry on with the next step. Okay, these are all finished. Now I can fold them over. There's different ways that you can fold these creases over. You can see, I don't know if you can see in the light, but you can see where I've made the lines, okay? They're not as great as the factory folds that the manufacturers of this stuff does, but it doesn't matter. There's different ways you can do it. The first way you can do is just fold it over like that. Second way you can do it is you can fold it over this way, and then make sure that you just get a nice flat fold over. The third way that you can do it, at least that I'm aware of, is you can hold it with your ruler like that. And then I always fold it further than it needs to go, just to make sure that it's going to fold over nice. I've also done it the other way, where I've put the ruler on this side and folded it over like this, okay? So whatever works for you, experiment, find a way that you're happy, and then you just got to make sure that they all fold. If any of them don't look right, just give them a little extra encouragement there so that they'll fold over. And then once we get this done, we'll be able to start gluing, okay? See, it's almost looking like a box already here. Oops. It's coming together quite nice. So now it's time for these glue flaps. This one only has the two. We've also got it, we're going to glue in the bottom though. So these guys here and this part here, we're going to glue in. I'll get to that in a second. I get out my cutting board. I get my wire brush. I want to scrape off, there's a waxy surface on here. I want to scrape it off so that it's the glue, when the glue is put on there, it sticks better. But I don't want to scrape off past this crease that I've made. So I put my ruler right up like that. That protects everything past it. And then I just go to town on it. Now you don't have to get every last little bit of the waxy surface off there. It doesn't have to be perfectly done. You do whatever you're comfortable with or whatever is okay with you. But that has worked pretty good for me, and I've never had a box come apart, okay? So this one's done and ready to go. Now we're going to do this one next. Okay, that one's all done. Next, we need to do this flap and this flap. So I set my ruler up just like this, and then you could use another piece of scrap paperboard like this to protect this one, or you can put your cover plate in there, whatever you want. You just want to make sure that you're only getting this flap and nothing else. You can be a bit more thorough if you want. From my experience, this is plenty good enough. Then we want to do this bottom piece here. This is the last one that we have to scrub, and then we're ready to start gluing. All right. Now, the next thing that we need to address, well, we can worry about that in a minute. Let's start by putting this together. So you've got two glue flaps that you got to put together, one here and one there. Doesn't matter which one you go with. Pick one and get started. The first thing that I do is I line it up to make sure that the bottom is going to sit really nice and that the top is going to sit nice. Sometimes there's a bit of a discrepancy, and I might have accidentally cut this a little bit shorter than it should have been. So you've got to find a way to hide that. Do you put it down here or do you put it up here? And you'll understand that more when you start making your own. So this is going to sit just nice right here. I can see how it's going to look, so I can start gluing that. When it comes to gluing, you want to make sure that you use just enough on there, because if you have too much glue, it's going to squish out and you're going to see it dried up on your finished box, and it doesn't look as nice. Maybe you don't care, I'm not too sure, but my recommendation is you go a little bit light on it. You want to make sure you spread it out with your fingers like so. And I'll often just use scrap, or I'll use my cutting board to wipe my fingers off. And then we're going to put it on there. You're going to want to fold it over right away so that you can make sure that, I don't know if you can see it, you don't want this piece hanging over past this. You want it to be nice and flush. So you gotta work it and play with it and get it right where you want it. And you'll find your own way that works for you. Okay, once you're happy with that, I should have had this stuff already in place before I started gluing, just so that I don't risk making my life more difficult. But I can put the piece of wood underneath here. Whoops. Helps to have the second piece on. I can go just like that. Then I can get my clamps in here. And now I can let this dry. When this glue is colder, it takes a while longer to dry. So if it's colder, give yourself maybe 10 minutes. If it's warm and dry, usually it dries within 5 minutes. You'll play around with it, you'll find a time that works well for you. So in the meantime, we're just going to sit and wait for it to dry. Okay, let's take this apart. Now it's going to take, it's still not totally dry. It's only been sitting about 7 or 8 minutes. So I want to be gentle on this joint. I don't want to stress it or push it or anything so that it can still keep drying, okay? So I just try to be as gentle as I can with it. As you can see, we've got a nice joint. We've got this on the inside. These guys here are the reason why I've got these nubs in here. And I'll explain that why shortly here. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to bring this over like so. If you don't fold it over enough, sometimes it just doesn't want to quite go over. So you got to give it a little extra encouragement. This is going to sit just like this. And as you can see, the top and the bottom sits quite nice. I'm happy with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue it. Once again, you want just enough to cover the entire surface area and no extra. You don't, any extra you want to get rid of. And it's especially important to get to these corners too, because if you don't, you'll see them loose in the finished product. Oh, I forgot to do one thing, very important, very quickly. Actually, I can do it after, it doesn't matter. Now we're going to put this guy in here like, I can't get it in, shoot. All right, that's all right. This guy goes here, this guy goes here. What I can do is I can try and slip some boards in. I'll put them in vertically like this over top, and then I can kind of put some downward pressure on there to make sure that everything glues on nice and flat. Or I can even just hold the pieces of wood flat against here, and I can push like that. I can get one of these, whatever I want to do. Okay, it's had a chance to dry. It looks pretty good. Our box is almost done. The next thing we're going to do is, now like I said earlier, you can make all kinds of different sizes boxes, from 40 non-sleeved decks to 120 double sleeved. There's so many different deck sizes you can make. So if you're one of those people that has different kinds of deck sizes, what I recommend you do is write down the size inside the box. So this is 100 single sleeved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write on this side flap, I'm going to give it a 100 and then an SS for single sleeved. Okay, so when this box is all finished and you look inside, I almost forgot, you've got to check. Sometimes this part is just a little bit too wide for here, and if that happens, that's a good thing, because you can just cut a little bit off the edge. Like, we're talking as little as you can take off. You want it to be a little tight going in there, because when it is, then you can it'll stay closed. If these flaps are cut too skinny, then it's got nothing to hold it into place there. Okay, but at any rate, as you can see inside there, now you always know what size box this is for, written down there on the bottom. Okay, you can also see this glue flap. It's behind this guy here. We don't want that, because when this is glued into place, this little part right here is going to catch cards. and then the card that's on the very back is going to hit that, and it's not going to want to go all the way in. So what we do is we make sure we get the right size, or the right side, and that's what this nub is for. So I'm going to cut him off right there, right flush with the factory crease. And then when I put it inside, you can see, hopefully you can see that it's now a non-issue, okay? Now I can see here, somehow I made a mistake, and this piece here is too high up this way. It needs to come down a bit. This sometimes happens, so I'm just going to rip it apart and re-glue it, and then we'll carry on with this part. I was in the process of ripping it apart, but I thought this is a great teachable moment. This is what happens when it's done right. You'll get a nice beautiful corner like this, but when it's done wrong, you can see that difference there, right? And that doesn't look very good. And that's why it's important to make sure that all of your exactly the same size top to bottom all the way around, so you don't have this issue. I should have had this down a bit because of the nub would have allowed for it. So, okay, it's had enough time to dry, I think. Can take these all out. That definitely looks better. So when I put this guy in here, it definitely sits a little bit flatter. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to glue this bottom in. There's actually quite a bit of glue holding this in here. So if I don't get every last bit of the surface area covered, it's not going to bother me too much. Then the trick is to get this flap to close without getting glue anywhere else other than where you want it to be. Once I've got it in there, I'm going to want to push the glue flap, or the side flaps down flat on the bottom, and the flap that goes inside, I want to push it against the back. That's my ultimate goal. So what I can do is I can put a bunch of these in here like this. That gets those in, and then I can even. You just play around with what you have. If that's not working for you, then you could use this. And get these guys over. You can stick this in. You can try that. If that's still not quite doing it, you can put one of these in there. If you can get less room in the middle than this is wide, you can squeeze your deck box like this, and then you just tweak your utility knife. That pushes these pieces of plywood up against the back, which will make sure that they glue nice, and you can even feel it with your fingers down here that it's doing it. You're also pushing the deck box down to make sure that you get this nice and flat on the bottom. And then by having these pieces of plywood where they are, they're pushing down on the side flaps that are going across the inside and making sure they're flat. And then you could even look in there, and if they're not flat, you can poke them down. You just do whatever you can to make sure that you get that to glue down nice and flat and sit the way you want it to. And then it's just a matter of sitting and waiting for this to dry. Okay, I think that this guy is done. Excuse me. So we're going to take everything out. You can look inside. Now the paperboard got a bit ripped there when I took apart this joint here. You can see that in there. And I purposely let a little bit of the glue squish out like it has there, so you can see that it's there. So maybe you don't care about that, maybe you do. But either way, that's pretty much how we can finish it. If you look inside there, you can see the deck box size as well, 100 single sleeved. So that pretty much finishes off this deck box. The last thing that we got to consider is, once again, we're a little bit too fat here, okay? Not a big deal. We just get our scissors out and we just snip off a tiny little bit. It's better to have to snip off 3 times to get it right than do it once and go too far in. Because like I say, if this part is cut too skinny this way, then it'll sit like this, or it'll sit up here. It won't stay closed for you. Okay, so take your time, get it just perfect, and then you don't have to worry about it. I'm literally cutting off as little as I can take on each side. That might even have been too much. No, it still needs just a hair more. Okay, that's not a problem. So we're going to just take off one more little bit here, if I can actually get the scissors. There we go. It closes nice. It stays closed. Okay. If you cut that too far just once, you'll understand how frustrating it is when this won't stay closed. But anyway, here's our deck box, all finished. It came together really nice. Like I said, you never see the bottom anyways. You're always, you know, if you're up here looking down, let's pretend that this is the tabletop right here. You're not looking at it. You're just seeing what's left. So who cares about the bottom? If it matters to you, well, then you can make it differently. But 100 single sleeve deck box right here. Like I say, you can make this any size you want, from 40 non-sleeved all the way up to 120 double sleeved. Each size, 40, 60, 80, 100, 110, and 120 card deck boxes come in the non-sleeved, single-sleeved, and double-sleeved size. And when you start getting to 110 and 120 cards, your deck box starts getting a lot longer. And so then your lid becomes longer as well. So I've created a wide face for those, so that instead of having a long lid this way, you can have a fat lid this way. So, and then it allows your face to be wider as well. So it's just a different way of creating a deck box depending on your what you like. So this is all there is to it. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned from it. And I hope that I can see some pictures of your finished deck boxes on a Facebook page in the near future. Thanks for watching.